Hey, everybody. So now that you've learned what Bootstrap is, you know how to include it in your project. We talked about the project that we're going to prepare. So in this lesson, we are going to do the first part of our project, which is the navigation section. We'll talk about the different nav features in general, and we're going to come out on the other side with a navigation section for our own project. All right, so as you saw before, we're going to create a navigation section at the top of the web page. So we can add some links. For example, if we want to think of it as a page that we will build for a company, right? It could be a link that we direct to another page that gives more information about the company's products and so forth. And of course, we're going to be using Bootstrap with this section, because I'll tell you, Bootstrap's a very useful library, and it does have these ready-built codes to speed up our work. And if we want to, we can also prepare this section using our own CSS file. But you already know how to do that. You're here for the experience and the convenience of the Bootstrap library. So let's start. First up, while working with Bootstrap, the Get Bootstrap site is always open in order to, well, not throw up any errors or to give you any problems, as errors due to different versions can be gotten, and I think it's going to be useful to check the current information. So I'll just click here in the document section, and I'll select the navbar tab from the component section. All right, so let's have a look around. It tells us a little bit of how it works. So here it leads to the color scheme section and gives a brief explanation of what the classes are and how to use it. So as you may recall, I've already prepared a section like this. And as you can see, the code's already here. So why don't we just start with a code section and see what code we wrote for what we have now. All right, so we've already got the codes we prepared in the last lesson, and as you can see, the link tag for CSS is here. Necessary code for JS and jQuery are also in the body section. So here I'll just write CDN CSS file as a comment on the link tag, because when I look at it later or while someone's examining the code, we can easily see what section the code belongs to. And I'll start by deleting H1. I'll write the Bootstrap project in the title. And I'll start using the navbar. So here we can say that the navbar functions the same as a div, but the person who sees this tag will easily understand that it is indeed related to the navigation bar. So now I'll just add an unordered list into this, add a list element for the sections in our menu, and we can write home as the first item. Of course, we can add an anchor tag for the links of where these elements will be directed to. So I'm leaving the href part blank for now. But this is how we can add all of the different list elements. So I'll write courses, about us, and then contact. All right, so when you take a look at it now, there's no images that we want to. In fact, we have created a list here below. So now let's see what classes to use from Get Bootstrap. So here I can add the navbar class to the nav element. And if we examine the navbar polish in the bootstrap.css file that we added to our computer, we can see which features that we added automatically for this class. For example, we include the position feature, justify feature, display features used here just by adding the navbar class to our project. So for the other tags, I can add the classes used in Bootstrap the same way. So I'm adding navbar nav class for the UL tag and the nav item classes for the LI tag. And I can write navlink class for anchor tag. So now when we look at it, we get a much different look than the first style. But our list still is not side by side. For this, we can use the navbar expand class. Now, if you looked at the documentation, you can see that there are options like small, medium, large, and extra large in this class. So it means that we will make our list side by side, but it will respond according to the different size of the screen. All right, so let's add the navbar expand class to our project, and we'll make it large, and you can see what I mean. So here, our list comes up horizontally, but look what happens when I reduce the screen size. It shows up vertically. So when we make it medium or small, it'll be listed vertically on smaller screen sizes. So why don't we use the large here? But let's see it by changing the background color for the nav bar. And here we can use the nav bar light and BG light classes. Not necessarily the color I want. So when we look at the color options, let's say that I want to change the part that I write from light to dark. So the background color, font color changes. And let's say that here I want to use different colors. So I'm looking at the various color options here. For example, let's just try this style for the background. And now you can see that the background has changed. So let's add a different color here if we want. Let's say that I want to make the background green. So I change the background class. Yes, that works. We can see that the background is now green. Or let's say that we can use a color option here by code. So I want to use BG dark class. And sure enough, that's enough for now for the list part. Why don't we examine the other sections from the Bootstrap site? All right, so here you can see the navbar script, and we want it to write Bootstrap here. So we'll call this section navbar brand, and we can say that's the name of our project, and we're adding this section with the anchor tag. So now when the screen gets smaller, I'll want to show our menu with a menu icon. And we can do this just by using the navbar toggler class. So we'll add a button for this, and I can add the classes. So here, collapse is used for the data toggle, and it uses the value given for the data target as the ID for div. So we'll put the list that we prepared in a div. And we will use the collapse. navbar collapse classes for our class. We will also use the data target value used here as an ID. So with this ID, we'll customize a list in the div here with this button. So when we press this button, we have this list that we prepared. I also use the navbar toggler icon class to add the menu icon. So by doing these operations here, we close our list when the screen becomes smaller. And then when the screen becomes smaller, our list becomes a visible list with the menu icon. When we add our code and look in the browser, everything looks pretty good. Now, when we look here, our project name and menu section are a little close to each other. So I want the menu section to be over here to the right a little more. So for this, I just add ML Auto to our unordered list. And then by saying this, we just send our list over to the far right of the screen. In fact, we leave a gap here with margin, so it'll automatically adjust the gap on the left and will come over here to the right. And see, the list elements went to the right. So yeah, the navbar section is now ready. So I can write navbar section as a comment on the codes that we prepared for this section. And if somebody comes along and needs to edit, or if I hand this project off to somebody, they're going to be able to see that the codes I wrote belong to the navbar section. Okay? So that's the first part of our project, the navbar. So we started to become familiar with how to use Bootstrap. In our next lesson, we're going to hit it harder. So come on back and I'll see you then.